As Washington works to stop Beijing's influence in the Pacific, two other countries are getting more involved. This week, the Solomon Islands told Australia that it won't allow Beijing to build a military base in its territory. Here's Australia's response.
Australia welcomed the Solomon Islands' decision to rule out a Chinese military base on its soil. The news comes after a recent China-Solomon security pact sent shockwaves throughout the West. Many voiced fears that the pact could allow China to establish its military just 1,000 miles off the coast of Australia. But the Solomon Islands Prime Minister reassured Australia that it won't be happening.
I think you've got to deal with people at face value, and he has made those comments. We, of course, have made very clear what Australia's position is on any proposal, such as the one that was mooted in the media prior to it being ruled out by Prime Minister Sogavare. So I welcome his comments ruling out there being a Chinese base in Australia.
A former director of U.S. Naval Intelligence also reacted to the remark, but shared a different perspective.
I think it's entirely plausible within the next decade we will see not only Chinese military vessels pulling into port in the Solomon Islands, but we will see PLA aircraft, which have already been there. A Y-20 resupply aircraft have flown through Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, and done resupply operations and sent in supplies. So it's just going to increase, and saying that you feel confident that it won't happen is just hard to comprehend.
In addition to its Solomon Islands deal, Beijing had pushed a similar agreement with 10 more Pacific nations. Even though the talks failed, the Chinese regime has suggested it would make new attempts in the future. But that may get harder for China as time goes on. Both the U.S. and Australia are ramping up their engagement with the region following China's effort. And Albanese's government has promised additional spending on regional aid, totaling over $350 million US. As for Washington, Vice President Kamala Harris announced plans to triple U.S. funding to the region to $60 million over the next decade. The U.S. also plans to establish new embassies in Kiribati and Tonga, as well as bring the Peace Corps back to the region. Harris made the announcement during a virtual meeting with leaders from the Pacific Islands Forum. A day after her remarks, China held a separate political dialogue with the leaders from the Pacific region.